It's highly recommended that babies in their first year of life get certain vaccinations for things like chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella, Hep B, even influenza. What many people don't realize is that those vaccines are actually very small, very safe amounts of the actual virus or bacteria you're trying to protect your baby from. We expose our babies to these trace amounts of viruses or bacteria to help them build an immunity, to prevent them from getting sick. As a parent, you can vaccinate your child from the toxic people your son or daughter will encounter in their life. You can vaccinate them from toxic situations that they'll find themselves in, that we all find ourselves in eventually. If you don't give them those vaccinations, if you don't expose them to small trace amounts of toxicity, you're leaving them at risk for the full dose of toxic things they'll come up against in their lives. As always, please subscribe to my channel. It'll be a big help for me convincing a publisher to publish my book. Also, I hope you listen to the entirety of this video, and please comment, especially if you don't agree with me. This topic will be uncomfortable for many of you, but I believe it's very important to vaccinate our children from the toxicity of the world. Maybe more important today than ever. Now, let's be honest here for a few minutes. Have you ever been ridiculed, shamed, or embarrassed? Of course you have. I'm not sure anyone has ever avoided ridicule, shame, or embarrassment. The important question is, did you deserve it? Personally, I've suffered all of those things, as I'm sure you have. In my case, there were many times when I deserved it. I deserved to be ridiculed, to be shamed. I deserved to be embarrassed because I did something or said something and it was inappropriate. What better way to learn a lesson than to have a personal failing be held right up to your face, to eat crow, as they say. Ridicule, shame, and embarrassment are a part of life, everyone's life. These are things that can't be avoided because as human beings, we all make mistakes, sometimes outrageously foolish and ridiculous mistakes. And being ridiculed, shamed, or embarrassed, it is a proper punishment. Now, let's flip that coin. All of us, every one of us, has been ridiculed, shamed, or embarrassed inappropriately when it wasn't deserved. You did nothing wrong, but some jerk decided he or she was going to attempt to make a fool of you for no better reason than their personal amusement. That's bullying in some form, to some degree. Again, that's something every one of us has had to deal with. Now, I purposely use the word attempt because when you've done nothing to deserve it, you shouldn't feel shame. You shouldn't be embarrassed. There's no ridicule that should be able to bother you because it's being used inappropriately. You did nothing wrong. Being ridiculed, shamed, or embarrassed is a part of life for all of us. The most important thing to do when something like this is happening to you first is determine, is it warranted? That is to say, did I deserve it? Now, personally, I never get embarrassed or feel shame or suffer ridicule if I know I did nothing to deserve that treatment. Unfortunately, there have been far too many times in my past when I absolutely did deserve to suffer one of those fates. I was an ass far too often in my younger years and deserved to be called out on my behavior when I was behaving inappropriately. Now, my main point in going on about this stuff is that your kids will be ridiculed, they will be shamed, and they will suffer embarrassment at times in their life, whether they deserved it or not. What are you going to do to prepare them for that? Are you vaccinating your son or daughter for this toxicity? The answer from most parents, sadly, is no. They're doing nothing to prepare their kids for these inevitable situations. Now, I'm going to say something that you might initially vehemently disagree with, but it's true. But just give me a chance to explain. Although your job as a parent starts out to be the protector of your baby, that role drastically changes as your baby grows up. Your main job as a parent is initially to protect your child. But as time goes on, your main job evolves to one in which you're preparing them for the future on their own. Ask any parent of a teenager about the amount of time they spend with their teenager compared to the amount of time they spent with their elementary schooler. Ask them about the amount of time they spend with their child and how it has decreased as their child has gotten older. When they're a baby, a parent is with them almost 100% of the time. Absolutely, if you're a stay-at-home parent like I was. But wait until they start school and then get involved in activities outside of school. Wait till they get their driver's license. As the years go by, a parent's time with their child decreases drastically. Now, with all that being said, I want to explain the importance of shame, ridicule, and embarrassment to your child's growth and preparation for life as an adult. As I said earlier, every adult is ridiculed, shamed, or embarrassed in their adult lives. Every single one of us. As a parent, you need to introduce this difficult aspect of life to your child. First, as early as possible. And second, more importantly even, in a constructive and controlled manner. Just like a vaccine. It's a very small, trace amount of the actual virus or bacteria. Although uncomfortable, actually, I believe this is rather easy. It's an uncomfortable situation, but it's easy. Every child, especially when they're young, act out in inappropriate ways, usually at the most inappropriate time. When my son was very young, as I outlined in my video, Consistency is King, he got 2 warnings for any bad behavior. Third time, we went home. It didn't matter where we were or what he was doing. That approach was extremely effective in curbing his poor behavior when he was young. Please watch my video, Consistency is King, to get a more detailed description of how that policy works. As my son got older, the 2 strikes and you're out rule lost a lot of its effectiveness. That's when I introduced him to shame, ridicule, and embarrassment as a parenting tool. You want to get your middle schooler to behave, not act out, or understand the importance of appropriate behavior. Embarrass them in front of their friends? Yes. Shame them for something they know is wrong, or ridicule them to get your point across? Yeah. One aspect of this is absolutely critically important is to never forget, though, that your child is unique. It's the degree to which you use this discipline that matters. Different kids will respond very differently to being shamed or embarrassed. Now, let me take a step back here for a minute. I'm talking about using this technique only when your child has done something they know is wrong. They've done something wrong, they know it's wrong. I'm not talking about shaming, ridiculing, or embarrassing a child for the twisted pleasure some people take in doing that. That's bullying. In my bullying video, I explain the difference between bullying and character development. If you haven't watched that one, please do. Now, when dealing with your child who has knowingly behaved out of line, this is a very valuable and effective form of punishment. I see no reason why an elementary school or middle school age youngster shouldn't be punished using this approach. Mean and cruel? Absolutely not. As I said earlier, every one of us has been shamed, ridiculed, and embarrassed in our adult lives. And when we're subject to that, if we've knowingly or should have known that we did what we did was wrong, was inappropriate, then we deserve that form of punishment, even as adults. Now, let's get back to our kids and helping them learn how the world works. I've watched many videos where a so-called parenting expert apply the adult approach to this problem. That is, praise in public, punish in private. That's generally how a good manager or supervisor deals with an employee acting inappropriately in a workplace. And I agree with that for an adult. But do you really believe the punish in private approach for your school-age son or daughter has any real effect on correcting their poor behavior? It doesn't. It's a cop-out. It's mom or dad not wanting to deal with a problem in the most effective way possible. It's avoiding shame, ridicule, or embarrassment when that's actually necessary to really and truly teach your kids a valuable lesson. Praise in public and punish in private is perfectly acceptable, actually a very intelligent and proper approach for an adult dealing with a situation, but not for kids. Now, if your child has done nothing wrong or doesn't realize they've done something wrong, as a parent, you should absolutely not use the shame, ridicule, or embarrassment tool. But here's the sad truth. As adults, we've all seen bosses, managers, supervisors, whatever, do exactly that. And that, mom and dad, that is the second reason to use this approach with your school-age child, to prepare them for when that happens, when they are bullied by shame, ridicule, or embarrassment, because that will happen. I asked this question in my very first video, Intro to ICD Parenting. Why have the last few generations seen ever-increasing rates of mental illness compared to previous generations? Increases in depression, anxiety, drug use, alcoholism, suicide. Too many parents purposefully have made their child's life easy, too easy. Gentle parenting may be a great tool in certain situations, but applied as a one-size-fits-all approach to your parenting, it's going to end in disaster for your kids. Kids need adversity in their lives. They need to be exposed to uncomfortable situations in order to become properly prepared to deal with those uncomfortable situations they will face. I went out of my way as often as appropriate to help my son learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Shaming him, ridiculing him, or embarrassing him when he got way out of line and he knew it was not only a way of teaching him proper behavior, but a great way of preparing him for those times when someone would try and shame him, ridicule him, or embarrass him when he had done nothing wrong. My son learned those lessons very well at a very young age. When he was in 6th grade, his school had a wear your pajamas to school day. I didn't know what he had done until the morning of that school day. He had borrowed Hello Kitty pajamas from one of the girls in his class. I dropped him off at school shaking my head. Everyone turned as he strutted to class in Hello Kitty bright pink PJs. He was teased. At least most boys tried to tease him, but he didn't care. He got the biggest kick out of it. Today, it's almost impossible to embarrass my son if he didn't do anything wrong. If someone tries to call him out on some nonsense that he knows is misplaced, he doesn't care. But when he did screw up as a kid and he should have known better, one simple glance from me and he would hang his head in shame and regret. He knew he had screwed up. As with so many things my wife and I taught our son, we only had to punish him using these tools a few times. After that, he knew what would happen and he self-corrected. That's how an adult behaves, self-correction. No adult should be shamed, ridiculed, or embarrassed for their behavior if they've done nothing wrong. However, a responsible, healthy, well-adjusted adult should recognize their poor behavior and immediately apologize for it, and then move on. How many adults do you know are incapable of that? Again, why are the last few generations suffering from way above average mental health issues? The answer: parents aren't preparing their kids for the challenges of life. Raising your child to be an independent, confident, good decision maker is all about preparing a child for adulthood. When my son was a baby, when he was 2, 3, 5 years old, my wife and I did everything in our power to protect him. But when he started school, when his time with us was drastically diminished, it was time to start laying the foundation for him to be able to protect himself. I understand that an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old can't fully protect themselves, but if, as a parent, you've taken the time to begin strengthening your son or daughter's mind, their body, their spirit, you're giving them the fundamental tools to be able to live their best life, which includes being able to protect themselves. A life that won't be undermined because of the many jerks they'll encounter who try to belittle them through shame, ridicule, or embarrassment. Those people won't hurt them. They'll be dismissed. All of us know that you can't stop nasty, hateful people from being nasty and hateful. You can't. But what you can do is recognize their toxicity and prepare your son or daughter to deal with it. Thanks for listening.